Keeping It Real Fishing here. Thanks for checking out the video. I want to give you my first impressions on the Death Dealer Bart lure. If you're a subscriber of mine, you may already be familiar with this lure or its manufacturer, Death Dealer Bart. These are made not by a company so much as just by a gentleman who makes these lures. They're handmade. The design is his. It's proprietary. It's something that he created. The gentleman's name is Skip, and his YouTube channel is Bloodknot 101. You'll find it as one of my favorites over on the right hand side of my channel. I was very excited when I saw this lure because, kind of as per my channel name, Keeping It Real Fishing, I look for things that are innovative, and I look for things that are not bullshit, because there is a lot of that in fishing, right? Every year manufacturers will change one little subtle thing about a lure, and then they'll say how it's God's gift to fishing and how it's going to catch you all these fish. Come on guys, let's be realistic here. But this lure is innovative. It is something different, and maybe that is more likely to happen when it's not coming out of a company, but an individual who can just do whatever he wants and take some risks and just take his time to perfect it and whatever your heart desires. So anyway, I was really excited when I first became aware of this lure. A little bit costly. I forget what I paid. I think they're about $15. So that's definitely not a cheap lure, but you are paying for the fact that there is someone who, his hands were on this lure. He was, making the mold and putting the skirt together. So it's not an assembly line. It's just one guy making them, and so you're paying a premium, not only for his design and for all the thought process behind it, but also for his actual time in making it. So Skip, I think, is a really nice lure, and had the opportunity to fish it this past weekend for the first time. And coincidentally, I actually got a bass on my very first cast with it, which was exciting and pretty surprising. Did fish it a little bit after that. Didn't have any more success, but that was cool to get one on my first cast. So let me talk to you a little bit about what makes the Bart lure different. As you can see, one of the things right off the bat is the shape of the lure. You see it has that pronounced kind of U shape like this. And when I saw that online, I suspected that that might help it kind of plane over things, to have that U shape. And the shape of the lure combined with where the line tie is located, you have to figure your line's going to be pulling from up here. So every time you pull that lure, it's going to do one of these jobs. And so if this is kind of like the plane of the water right now, if we're on the water, and say there's like a stick right here, or a log, or a lily pad, and you're coming up to it, twitch, twitch, twitch. Every time you twitch, that front wants to come up. And so I found that I could pretty readily go over things with this lure, because again of the shape and the line tie. Talking about the composition of the lure, it is unique in that it's a hard plastic lure, but it's extremely buoyant. This plastic seems to be very durable. I can't scratch it off with my fingernail or really dent it in any way. I guess it feels a little bit lighter than I thought. Although it's not a light lure, it comes out just about half an ounce, a tick over half an ounce. But it just has a very interesting feel. I've never felt a lure, I guess, made of this material. And you could see it's, if I could zoom in here or get a close-up, it feels almost porous to the touch, like a sponge with millions of fine holes in it. It's an interesting sensation. And it's just extremely buoyant. It just sits right on top of the water. Let me tell you a little bit about my experience actually fishing it. One of my concerns, I guess you could imagine there's a trade-off with a design like this. The big thing that's being addressed here is that you have an exposed hook. So different than, say, a hollow body frog, where many of us often will miss those strikes because the lure has to compress. This one alleviates that by having a ever exposed hook, and that hook is protected by the curvature of the lure. Well, there's a flip side to that, kind of literally. The flip side is every once in a while when you cast this, it's not going to land up. Okay? In my experience, and I just fished it the one day, fished it about, I don't know, half hour to 45 minutes. I'd say about every 8 out of 10 casts it landed the way you want it to land. The other, maybe 20%, it did land down. Now, pretty cool feature. You see there's kind of a keel there to the bottom, so it's kind of weighted. what ends up happening is if you cast this and it lands down in the water, it wants to right itself, and it will just spin over in the water. So I'm pretty sure that that was something that Skip worked on for a while to get it to do that. Of course, people would be concerned if their lure just, landed any which way. So very cool. It will right itself in the water. But it's not a perfect system. There's really nothing that you could do about this. If you're in open water, say the water where my hand is just, plain, just open water, it'll flip over. It will do it pretty much on its own. If it doesn't do it automatically, just give it a little tiny twitch and it'll start to flip over. If there's anything below you, as you can imagine, it's really not going to happen. If you have weeds coming up to the surface, or even kind of like that silky type weeds, or of course if you land on like a lily pad, but if there's anything there, as this thing tries to flip, the hook will come in contact with the weeds or the obstruction, and it won't be able to. So just so you know, it's a trade-off. Like I said, you can kind of dictate whether or not that happens based on if you're casting into really, really heavy stuff. If you are, you stand a chance of every once in a while of the lure not flipping on its own. If you're casting into a little bit open water, then you're going to be good probably every time. I can't really comment on the hookup ratio. I only assume that it's going to be excellent. I've seen a lot of Skip's videos. Seems like it's great. It hooks them very, very well, and it's usually in the top of the mouth. It's a 5/0, I believe a 5/0 eagle claw hook. It's very, very sharp. And yeah, it's just a really, really cool, innovative lure. I'm talking about hookup ratios. Like I said, I've just fished it once. I want to give you my first impressions on it, but I don't see these impressions changing. I just wanted to see the buoyancy in the water. I was curious as to how it would roll in the water. The action in the water. The action is good. Kind of just like meanders along. A little bit of a walk the dog I was able to do. And yeah, the one fish that struck it, I got, so that's a good thing. These are made in all sorts of different color combinations. If you go to Skip's channel, you will see a whole bevy of different colors for not only the lure, but for the skirts. And as you can see, I liked it to get just plain black. I love just plain black for topwater lures. I've had a lot of success on it. You really can't go wrong. And went with dark legs with a little bit of red. And as you're going to see, I'm going to roll in a video immediately following this tabletop look at the lure. This red is a lot brighter out, in the sun and on the water. It really pops. Here under my lights, it doesn't look so impressive, but it looks really cool in the water. Alright guys, so last thing I wanted to mention was the rattle. One of the things I really like about this lure is that there's a rattle in it, and there's some, I don't know if I have one out here. Does this one have it? No. But there's some hollow body frogs that have rattles in them, and they just kind of like shove a glass rattle inside there. So what ends up happening in your hollow body frogs with rattles is that the bead is moving around inside of the glass, but then that whole assembly is kind of just randomly moving around inside of the frog, and it's kind of erratic in the way that it rattles or doesn't, because it's kind of just jumbling all over the place. I really like this here, and this is, I don't know if anybody else really has a frog that does it like this. The rattle is fixed inside the lure, similar to any crankbait you would think of. The bead inside has kind of one path that it could take back and forth, and so that every time you twitch it, you're going to get the same rattle because the bead is moving within a defined space. It's encapsulated, so the rattle's stuck in one place and the bead just moves back and forth within it. And I really like that, because you can imagine every time you twitch this on the water, you're getting that distinct rattle every time. So I thought that was a really, really good thing. Alright everybody, so that's the Death Dealer Bart. Could definitely advise you picking up one of these. It's a very cool lure, very innovative, fun to fish, and I suspect the hookup ratios will be excellent. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video towards the end of the summer after I've used it a lot. But this is just a first impressions video, and right now I'm going to show you my very first cast with the Bart. Alright, so this is a good looking spot for the Bart lure. Ain't bad, man. First cast. Let's see what this guy looks like. Let's see what we got here. That's a little bit better. I came right over for that. Okay. There we go. Well, Skip, I didn't give you an intro, but that's on the Bart. First cast, just picked it up back here in some shallows. Middle of the day, like 3:30. Bright sun, bluebird skies. And let's see, we got a hook set on the side, but he's hooked good, he ain't going anywhere. If I could just get it out now. It's got some stuff on, you can't see. There you go, little one. Maybe 1.75 pounds. On the Death Dealer Bart. It works. $110. £1 10 ounces, and this is a 16-inch fish. 110 at 16. There he goes.